Alright guys, baseball is finally back, and I can actually say this now without joking or being sarcastic. Whew! If you guys watched the last video or seen my discourse on Twitter at all, I was nervous about the lockout, but we don't have to talk about it anymore, thank the Lord. So it's been roughly 2 weeks since Underdog launched the dinger. So what I want to talk about today is ADPs that I like and don't like. I want to talk about what's changed since my last video. Wanted to review zero pitcher once again, talk about how often I'm doing zero pitcher, the pitchers that I'm taking, and about how many pitchers I am taking while executing this strategy. We'll get into some other draft strategy talk as well, but before we get into all that, let's just get into some of the news that's taken place now that teams can actually start to sign players and trade players and all that fun stuff. So first, we got Carlos Rodon to the San Francisco Giants. I like this move. I think for his fantasy stock, this is a boost for him. One of the question marks that I had about Rodon is the health going into this season, and if the Giants are willing to give him a 2-year, $40 million contract, playing in Oracle Park is definitely beneficial. Next, we had Clayton Kershaw, who re-signed with the Dodgers on a 1-year deal. This doesn't really boost him much for me. I wasn't really taking Clayton Kershaw all that much already, and I think his price is pretty fair. It doesn't really do much for me to see that he re-signed. I think he is what he is. He's probably a low strikeout guy, but could get you some good innings, and I'm not sure how many quality starts we're going to get out of him, but now that the universal DH is here, look at this and take a silver lining that he's not moving to a new park and he's staying where he's comfortable. Those were the big starting pitcher free agents this year, so from there's not really much else to wait for. We had Mitch Garver traded to the Texas Rangers in exchange for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and a prospect. I think that's pretty interesting. I like it because when I take Simeon and Seager, it's hard to find another player to stack with them. You can do Nate Lowe, you can do Nick Solak, kind of gross. Garver's nice because he's got power, so he's not just a guy that you're stacking. He has standalone value with his power. And then Max Muncy, if you guys didn't know, was unsure of his opening day status. There was a report that just came out that said Max Muncy is good to go for opening day, so that is excellent. I'm not moving him up in his rank. He's already pretty high. He's ranked 26th right now, so that's a pretty steep price considering how deep infield is, but to get that LA Dodgers stack, he fits really nice. Otherwise, at the time of recording, that's the biggest news that we have on the stove so far. Got my Jeff Passan notifications on and anxiously awaiting the next move. All right, let's get into some of these ADPs. Like I said, we got about 2 weeks worth of data, so these ADPs are pretty solid. There are still some guys slowly making their ranks up as news breaks, but overall, these ranks are going to be pretty solid until the start of the season. So let's start off with one of the guys that I like right now. Carlos Rodon is somebody that I really like at his current ADP now that he's signed with the Giants. Like I said, I'm taking only positive things away from this Giants signing. If they feel he's healthy enough to give all that money, then I'm going to take him at his current ADP. Playing in Oracle Park is a big boost to him, and the Giants really seem to know what they're doing when it comes to their pitchers. They've got a really loaded staff, to be honest. There's not one true ace, however, they're all just very solid pitchers. Very fun staff. There is definitely some concern with the workload. He has never been healthy, really, throughout his career. And the 1 year that he was finally looking to have a clean bill of health, he was fantastic, but only threw 130 pitches. So that is a legitimate concern. I like him as somebody that I'm taking on a team where I know I'm going to be taking 8 pitchers because that gives me some insurance in case he doesn't pan out. All right, now someone whose ADP I do not agree with right now is Francisco Lindor. Lindor is in a really nice situation on the Mets. They have a very stacked lineup around him, and they are a fun team to try to stack. But Lindor's price right now just doesn't make sense. The 23rd ranked infielder. He's going before guys like Corey Seager, Carlos Correa, Rhys Hoskins, Ketel Marte, not to mention all the other outfielders that you need to take because it gets so thin so fast. I'm not going to have a lot of Lindor, and I'm not going to sweat it. Another player whose ADP I don't like is actually essentially the entire team, and that's the Kansas City Royals. Specifically, Adalberto Mondesi, Whit Merrifield, and Bobby Witt Jr. I see major red flags with all three of these guys. Mondesi is just such a boomer bust profile, and it kind of screams more bust than boom to me. As much as I'll be rooting for him to succeed because he's an electric player, I don't think I'm going to have a lot of him unless he falls to the 120, 130 range, which to be honest, I have seen happen. I've seen him fall to 140, so there are some rooms that are sharper than others that are not falling for that ADP, which is currently at 113. Now, Whit Merrifield has a super high ADP at 64. I could see this if he was an outfielder, outfielder, he would probably be going ahead of that if he was an outfielder, but he's an infielder, super deep position, and he's getting older. I feel like we've been saying Whit Merrifield's been getting older for the last 3 years since he first broke out. He relies heavily on stolen bases is part of why that's concerning. Speed is going to go before someone's power does more often than not. And Whit Merrifield really relies on stolen bases to provide his fantasy value. He hits his fair share of doubles thanks to that speed, but again, I would anticipate a slight decline at the minimum in his speed. 40 stolen bases last year is pretty nuts. To me, that type of profile of what you need for him to meet his ceiling value to make that pick worth it, I'm not going to have a lot of him, unfortunately. And then next, Bobby Witt Jr. I'm very excited for him as a player. I'm very excited for the Royals, period. I just can't take a rookie that soon in the draft with all these other red flags that I'm naming for his counterparts around him. And again, infield is so deep, and I could be taking a pitcher or an infielder where Bobby Witt's going and then pick up another guy that I'm about to say that I really like for his ADP later on. It just doesn't make sense. You just got to play the game smart and know how deep infield is and know where the value is. All right, let's end on a positive note. So there's two guys whose ADPs I really like right now, and the first, well, I guess the second, since I already said Rodon, is Brandon Woodruff. As a Pirates fan and just a fan of baseball, I've watched a lot of Brandon Woodruff games, and the way he pitches is just so dominant, it's so fun to watch. He's got one of the best high fastballs in the game right now. Just absolutely shoves and bullies hitters. Now, his ADP is very fair and pretty high. It's at 31 right now, and I'm not necessarily saying to take him in the first round, but I am taking him all day in the second round, and if he falls to me in the third round, then shit, I'm taking him there too. I just see him as somebody who's so consistent and has the opportunity to stack up a lot of quality starts thanks to the universal DH, and a lot of W's, because I think the Brewers are going to be a pretty good team. And now the last two guys that I like, I'm going to lump them together because I've been taking them back and forth, and I kind of see them as a tie in my ranks, and that's Corey Seager and Carlos Correa. I really like where these guys are going right now. They fit a lot of builds in my opinion. I just trust in their skills, and I see them as finishing higher than some guys that are well above them in ADP right now. And I said last two, but there's actually a bonus one. This is a hat tip to my guy Dark Sheep, chatting over on the Spike Week Discord. Again, if you're not in the Spike Week Discord, you should get in there. What I like about it is that there is no hive mind when it comes to that Discord. There's a lot of really sharp guys with a lot of their own unique takes, and I think you can learn a lot from that because it'll get you exposed to a player who maybe you were down on, and then you can boost them in your ranks. Anyways, I'll stop rambling. Get in there, it's a good time. But this player, back to the point, Brandon Belt right now is going in the last 3 rounds of every single draft, and this dude is good. He is legit. He's extremely cheap, and I think has the median outcome of a lot of guys going way ahead of him. He doesn't always have a clean bill of health, and he's on the wrong side of 30, but for underdog scoring format, this guy is going to pile up the points, and he is basically free, so make room for him. Start taking Brandon Belt. But that's it as far as the players go that I like and don't like at their current ADPs. Let's get into zero pitcher and do a V2, do an update on that. So I'm still running zero pitcher in the slow drafts that I'm doing. Not every team that I'm running is zero pitcher, but I would say more often than not, it's something that I'm running. I wouldn't say it's the optimal strategy because I can't confidently say what any of the optimal strategies are because we are talking about essentially 2 different game modes in one tournament because we have a season-long portion and then we break it down into the playoffs where really anything can happen. So it's really hard to say what is going to be optimal for this season now that we have 20 roster spots and an added flex. However, I will tell you what pitchers I'm taking quite a bit of. I have a lot of Michael Kopech. I have a lot of Josiah Gray. I've been taking him in the 20th round a lot. I have a lot of Freddie Peralta. I like making him my first pitcher off the board while running zero pitcher. And I got a lot of the Rays pitchers in McClanahan and Shane Baz. I'll continue to mix up my exposures. I'm definitely not the type of drafter to concentrate all my eggs in a couple baskets. I'm way more risk averse than that, but I still like to call my shots on my player takes. But when running this strat, those guys just stick out as great values to take in my large rotation, which I have yet to go past 9 pitchers. If I'm doing zero pitcher, I'm going 8 or 9. I just can't bring myself to draft 10 whenever I need 7 batters every single week. To me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to go that extreme. So another thing that I'm doing when drafting that I didn't talk about in the first video is stacking. this has been a really popular topic right now in the MLB Bestball streets, is focusing on stacks. We do have some data from our friend Baseball on Twitter. I will put his @ over here. He's been doing some awesome research with the Dinger data that Underdog released to us this winter. And one of the things he found is that stacking was really underutilized last year. And when it was used, it actually had a lower max points scored, I believe, meaning that teams that didn't stack at least 7 total batters, could be from various teams, in their lineups had higher total scores in a week compared to those who did stack. I probably butchered that, so please check him out on Twitter, go through his research, it's really solid. So I am definitely trying to stack more and more in these drafts, even if it's a team that I don't love. If I am taking a guy early, I'm going to try to get his teammates later on. I think that's going to be a big difference maker this year. We're going to see a lot more stacking, and I think we're going to see a stacked team, a very highly stacked team, in my opinion, win it all this year in the Bunt and in the Dinger. So let's see if I'm right on that. Get my Miss Cleo on, but hey, we'll see. Otherwise, that's really all I got on my updates. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys more in these drafts. If you are watching this and you're in the Bestball streets, hit me up on Twitter, let me know your Underdog handles so that way I can give you a virtual what's up whenever I see you out there. Again, check out the Spike Week Discord. We're talking a lot of baseball in there, a lot of good conversations, a lot of good insights. So if you want an edge, definitely join that. Spike Week also has their own rankings. I would recommend checking those out as well. Some real sharp minds over there trying to help everybody out. And all that stuff is free, so you got no excuse really. This has been fun, guys. I'm looking forward to more drafting now that we for sure have a season. See you guys out there. Best of luck. Take it easy.